Welcome to the Tactical Business Podcast. I'm your host, Wade Stolsky, and today I am speaking with Kyle King, who is the Customer Success Manager at our friends over at Tactical Pay. Kyle, how are you doing today, sir?
Pretty good, Wade. Thanks for having me on.
No, I'm excited to talk to you. So I always love it when we get to go into the inner workings of the business. So it really is something I think is so interesting, since a lot of 2A businesses have challenges that no other business in the United States has. So I love kind of chatting about it. So before we get going, why don't you kind of run me through a little bit how you came to be the customer service manager over there? What was sort of your path? Have you always been in the firearms industry, or how did you get into this industry?
Before I got in this industry, I was actually a retail manager for like 18 years. I did everything from nuts and bolts all the way to bullets. I ran a firearms store for about 2 years. Before then, I was at Academy at their firearms locations. I, I've always had a passion for firearms. I own plenty, and it's just good. It was always something I wanted to help the smaller companies become like the bigger companies. So, and I spoke with Bill here, got me on.
Yeah, well, and that's something I think it's important to remember, is that if you look at, your Palmetto State Armory or whatever, they didn't start like that. You know what I mean? Like they started just every business has to start somewhere. And I think it's we can get caught up. It's very easy to get caught up, and maybe we should be bigger, or maybe we should be doing something different. And everyone's got to kind of go through that path. So that's great. So how is working at where you are now different from working in retail before?
I am still in customer service, or in this case, merchant service. It's just knowing how to talk to people, wanting to help, regardless whether it was help them pick out a Christmas gift, or in this case, helping them succeed and help their business grow. It's all still dealing with people, and just the goal is to help. And that's what I actually enjoy doing.
Well, and one of the things too is that from the retail side of buying a firearm, there are lots of different options, right? And I have this belief where everyone has a firearm that's perfect for them. There's no one size fits all firearm for, like, if you're a handgun, a Glock is not great for everybody, even though that's my gun of choice, right? And so there's so many different pieces of information that you need to get to find the right fit. And basically that's what you're doing now, except for you're doing it on the merchant side with regards on the financing and the merchant services.
Correct.
Yeah. And go ahead.
It's just pretty much like you just said. There's not that many choices, though, in the merchant services that can take care of the tactical merchant themselves, because of the negative connotation that's been placed on.
Well, and by that you mean there's not a lot of options for them in terms of for the different types of, like, credit card processing or whatever, because so many companies don't want to do it. There are, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today, and we're going to niche down specifically into trade shows and gun shows and some of those things. But before I get there, do you find that that people that you talk to in the firearms industry, that they feel like things are going to loosen up coming forward now with the political change, or do they feel, is there any kind of, given the fact that we've got a new president, the Senate and the House are going more Republican. I know it's definitely more state specific, but what's the mood out there right now?
A lot of them, it does seem more relaxed, more relieved, calmer. Just now they're just worried about day-to-day business, rather than thinking, oh, what's going to happen to us in January, so to speak. A lot of it has been more relaxed, more calmed down. Now they're just focused on doing business and growing.
And that's hard enough by itself, right? Just growing any business, I don't care if it's a firearms business or whatever, is that sometimes the difference between winning and losing is a micron, right? And so if you have all these extra concerns about regulation, or having your credit card processor shut off your account, at the last, when you don't know when it's going to happen, or losing your merchant services, that can sometimes make or break a business. So I think what you're doing and what, Tactical Pay is doing, is so important to allow 2A businesses to flourish and to thrive. So what I want to do is I want to kind of drill down a little bit today and talk about gun shows and trade shows, right? And so I think as the the attitude of everyone is expanding and getting more excited. These shows will continue to grow. We know we got SHOT Show that's coming up in January, which is obviously a huge thing. Uh, you know, let's talk about sort of the optimal payment setup for sellers at these places. Now, what kind of credit card options do sellers have for equipment? I mean, what's the best way to pick between them, basically?
We try to have multitude of choices in order for merchants can pick any type. Some prefer a countertop unit. Some would prefer, say, a mobile unit, and some don't want to take any equipment with them. And we have an app that you can download. It's the most economical way to do it. One of their cheaper variations, and all it is pulling out your phone. They tap their card, and you're good to go. And then for some of the other ones, we have countertop units that will spit out a receipt because some buyers do love their receipts. Less people still love having that piece of paper in their hand, knowing that they got that. And then some people just love having the quick tap and go on our, I'll say our P5, for instance. It's shaped just like a cell phone, same size. It's got tap to pay on the back, got a camera, everything, and then our unit that's for countertop is getting a little blurred out, but yeah, it's simple, easy. You can tap. It's got a touch screen. You can slide your credit cards on them. There's a multitude of ways that we can assist with the merchant for trade shows and helping them get ready, kind of just make them have the best trade show they can to grow.
And I think there's been a big change in terms of the consumer and their being comfortable in paying to something like a phone, right? I think with the advent of Venmo and PayPal and all those types of things, people are so used to now doing transactions on a phone. Is the P5, is that the reader that's shaped like a phone?
Yes.
Right. And I think I'm pretty sure they did that on purpose to make people think, oh, it's just like a phone, right? So it makes them more comfortable.
Yeah, it's something that you could put in your pocket at a show while you're doing your setup. You don't have to worry about having a whole countertop unit, and there's no added weight because it's like having a second cell phone in your pocket. Everyone's used to having a cell phone in their pocket, and it's just mobile, more size wise for the quick and easy. Okay, here, put your card right here, good to go.
Well, and one nice thing about that too is that there's an obvious difference between the P5 and your personal cell phone. Because
Yeah.
even though if it's my business and I'm running it and I pull out my personal phone, some people that may create friction in the buying process just because in their mind they're like it's a personal phone versus a business phone or whatever. And so the P5 solves that problem. And then, but also too is that I mean, anecdotally, are you seeing people having any hesitation by paying on a phone? I haven't heard anything like that.
Not really. We have several merchants that actually do well with having the app on their phone rather than another piece of equipment. Like you said, we've gotten to the point where everyone's just used to saying pulling their cell phones out, tapping to paying, and everything is good. But there are the ones that prefer to see a separate unit from someone's phone. It just makes them feel more secure.
Right, absolutely. And I think there's one thing that I've learned through, I write for the firearms industry and obviously I have this podcast and one thing that I've learned through talking to firearms people through all different verticals is that they're not quick to trust necessarily, right?
Mm.
And so there is a little bit of a trust bridge that needs to be dealt either if you're dealing with the consumer or be built, either if you're dealing with the consumer or if you're dealing with another business. And that's why tactical pay is so great is because you guys' communication is so good and walking everyone through. And so I can see how the different options would be appropriate for different businesses, right? Either for a comfort level, like, hey, it's like, I know all my people personally, so the phone is going to be fine. Or, I have a strong relationship with them, or like we're more of a traditional retail. So let's go with something that's more like the P5.
Yeah. And there's also merchants that have retail shops, and I tell them, don't bring your P1 to the show. I said, we can always get you another device to add on to keep the P1 at the shop. That way you can still do sales at the shop while you're at the show. And that's when the P5 comes into play because it's the best trade show or show period little device that we have because it's mobile, doesn't have a big footprint, and it can do everything that the P1 does minus the receipt option, but we can still send it to your email or text message to you. So
And the P1 is the more traditional countertop that you're thinking in terms of being able to like you would say go into any store basically, right?
yes,
Okay.
it's more traditional countertop unit. It swipes, tap, insert. I mean, it looks more like a unit you would see at a register or in a shop rather than at the show. But we have some that just love it for that receipt option. They can print it, put it on a piece of paper, and that way they know they keep a record of that at the end of the shows.
Yeah, and I think that's it's important that the options are not just for the consumer as well, right? So
Mhm.
like for me personally, I'm not the most organized human being in the world, so I wouldn't want to do it on my own phone. I would want to have like a dedicated like, okay, this is my P5, this is what it does, like, and so I know that that is the only thing that happens on that device has to do with my business, right? And so, but then also then for the consumer as well. So that's great for having a lot of different options. So now, do you need, so these trade shows, they're at all various different locations, obviously. They have all, some of them are very high level, some of them are like not, production value a little lower. Do you need like a hard line of power to be able to run these and accept credit cards? How does that work?
Best the best practices, what I tell all my merchants is the best thing to do is the night before the show, fully charge it, hook it up to the charger. It's a C type charger, so pretty much almost any charger works with it. Charge it to 100%, and then throughout the day, you don't. They normally will last a day easy without being hooked back up. Depending on how much I've seen merchants use it a lot, so that way it obviously drains battery quicker. The best thing I could tell them is bring a power bank, so that way you're not having to worry about where's the charging outlet. All it is a little block that hooks up, just like we would our cell phones, and they would give them an extra 20 hours of power, which obviously you don't need that long for a show, but you have that option.
Yeah, because you don't want to go through all of that work in terms of registering for the show, traveling there, setting everything up, and then not being able to take payments. That's kind of a bummer,
Yeah.
obviously. Yeah. And that makes sense. But at the same time, too, is you don't have to be hardwired into
No,
a phone line or hardwired into the electrical outlet to be able to run your
no,
business.
for electrical, no, and honestly, hardline for internet, 95% of the time it shows you aren't going to be because you're in booths. So the best thing to do is either hook up to their Wi-Fi. But what we found best being in going to shows and everything is do a hotspot from your phone to the device. No one else can tap into that internet signal but you. It will be the strongest signal given, and you're not using it all the time, so it can be turned off and turned back on whenever you're ready to charge the use to process a payment.
Yeah, my iPhone, I have a hotspot on there and it works great. Just connect to my laptop to it. It's so seamless. I never worry about it. I don't even know what I pay for it. Like maybe like $5 extra a month or something like that, or $10 a month. It's so cheap now. Um, and yeah, and then obviously because anytime you have financial information, you want to try to be as secure as possible and not rely upon the encryption or something in a public Wi-Fi. But I think that's great. I think it's great advice. Now, let's say that I'm not a huge retail shop. I have a retail component that's small. I do trade shows. Can I just use the P5 in my shop as well? Is there anything that prevents me
Oh
from
yeah,
doing that for retail? So get a kind of
no,
like have a one solution fits all situation.
yes, you do have small shops. Yes, if you know you're going to be closed while you're at the show, you don't have other employees. Yes, the P5 is a great one stop as well. It looks more sleek and modern, so it's draws attention to it. So people are like, hey, look, yeah. So it's been a more popular devices of late, but people still love the tried and true P1. I mean, they love the fact, hey, I see it on my counter, it ain't moving, it's there.
Yeah. And that's what's so great is I think what like tactical pay gives the options for people to grow with the business. It doesn't make sense for you to come in as a brand new business and get, six different readers and it's just start with one, which we need, and that satisfies both where you're at and then when you travel. Um, now you said something really funny as you said, I love guns. I have a lot of guns. And there's like the subtext, it's like I have too many guns, right? And so when you go to when you go to a show, you may have a plan, right? And so that plan is I have this budget and I'm going to buy, I'm not going to go over that budget. But then you see something at the show and you're like, all right, I really want this for whatever reason. Are you seeing more sort of finance options coming in right now for guns? How does that work? In terms of for 2A businesses to do payment options, how does that work exactly?
Yeah. Actually, we have a relationship with Cordova. And if merchant comes to us and says, hey, expresses interest in having Cordova implemented either on their site or in person in their retail shop, we can do that. And it's 4 payments over 6 weeks. You can do up to $10,000 in basically pending on how much they allow it, but up to $10,000 to buy something with. And I'm one of those, Wade. I've been in a firearm shop. I'm like, that gun is $2,000. I look to my left, my wife, I already know I can get 500, but I can't get $2,000. But if I did the Cordova with that merchant, I will get my $2,000 gun for the 500 right then.
Right.
I mean, the options, it increases the growth and the profitability of the merchants just by offering something that maybe a customer who had 500 right then would have bought if they had that option to do Cordova.
Well, yeah, and it allows you to take advantage of perhaps maybe a sale or take advantage of a situation to where it's like, yes, okay, I have to wait to budget the $2,000, maybe wait another
Yeah.
couple months, and then it's not going to be there, and it's not going to be there anymore, because some of
It'll be
these,
2,500 bucks.
right, exactly, yeah, because it's one thing that we've noticed, obviously, with inflation is prices are going up, not down, and everything. So, and then walk me through a little bit. So actually walk me through a little bit about how that works then. So how does a consumer, if you're not familiar with Cordova, how does that work as the consumer then? You would say, okay, I'd like to put this on a plan. Do you do it through an app on the phone? Like what does the buying
Yeah,
process
there
of
will
that
be
look
an
like?
app through the phone that they will, there most of the time, our merchants will have QR codes, say in their shop, and also online there'll be the link that they click to do the application for Cordova and see how much they're approved for. Same thing would be for in store. There'd be a little QR code. They just scan it. They run their app. It'll tell them how much they're good for. And then they go to the merchant and they can type in that uh, virtual style credit card number that they give. And that's how they use to pay for it.
Yeah, and then basically then they just work out the payment
Yeah.
deal. Does the seller have to do anything in that situation, meaning for follow
No,
up, or is that all handled by Cordova?
no, the seller gets their money when the $2,000 is run. The seller gets their money. Cordova is the one who has to go and get the other 1,500, so to speak, from that merch or from the consumer. The seller gets his money right then and there.
Yeah, so it's almost a no-brainer for the seller. It's like, why,
Exactly.
because it gives it increases the ability of your consumer to purchase, increases the number of people that can purchase at that time at the show, and then you just get paid right there. So it's you don't have to, let Cordova worry about that. I think that's genius. Um, Walk me through a little bit about I've heard some people use a little bit of like a cash discount model for 2A businesses. What is that exactly, and can 2A businesses use that?
Honestly, it's the cash discount program benefits the seller more so than they really know. We're all used to a traditional fee structure where we know when the consumer swipes their card, you're getting that 3% or up to the 3 to 4% taken out of you in fees. What cash discount does is flip that around. So on $100 transaction, instead of you only getting $97 from it because of the 3%, you actually get the full 100 and the consumer pays that 3%. So you are eliminating so many fees, the interchange fees on your monthly statement. You're only paying your merchant fees. And it also helps quite a bit with getting to know where your profitability is. How much makes it easier to figure out your statements. It does help the merchant out quite a bit. Now, I will say there are the merchants that have been in business 15 years trying to explain cash discounts that way. They are not having it because they're used to interchange and the customers are used to not seeing a 3% added onto them. Most
Right.
consumers don't even know where the 3% comes from.
Right.
They don't know what it is. But if they start seeing it on their purchases, it makes Jimmy start asking questions about why is the raise in price? And it's not really a raise in price. It's just the card brands getting their money from the consumer rather than the merchant.
And then how do and I guess that then is the argument then that that the merchant will sell the will sell the gun or the whatever they're selling a little lower price with the see that would gives the discount idea. Do you know what I'm saying? Like to kind of or to fold that in, or how do they sell that to the consumer really?
For the most part, it's I always tell them to just do the 3% on top of the gun.
Hmm.
So that way it's there, but mostly the cash discount is only in cash and checks. Like, or if they pay with cash or check, they don't have to deal with the fees like they do with the credit card processing. It's, but yeah, most time if you tell them, hey, you want to pay cash or check, you get it's the cash discount. That's what it is.
Right, right, right. So yeah, so basically what you would do is it's almost like when you go to a restaurant at the bottom of the menu, it says parties of five or more, gratuities automatically included or something like
Right.
that, right? It's like it's you have a standard of business that you do and you say, hey, listen, if you're going to use a credit card, this is a fee that you're going to incur. But if you use cash, you don't incur that fee. And then you let the consumer decide, okay, I want to do cash or I want to do the car,
Yeah.
this fee. And you leave the choice up to the consumer. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think there's no reason there's as the competition increases and as the margins decrease in some of these businesses, I think, if you can give yourself a 3%, get rid of that 3% vig and do it in a way that, is
Mhm.
acceptable to your customers. I can see as a business why that, there's no reason why you wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah.
So, and then now, what other, in terms of, do you have any other kind of tips for people? Maybe I've never gone to a gun show before, right? So I've never gone to a gun show or a trade show. I'm a merchant. Okay. So like I'm ready to go, traditional firearms, whatever. What are some like three things that you would tell me as advice to me for my first time that maybe that from your experience that you've seen before?
Well, wait, I've heard you speak about tactical and firearms, so you're aware of what a bug out bag is, right?
Hmm.
I would do a trade show bug out bag. Pretty much make sure you have an extra chargers, you have the power banks I mentioned before. Um, make sure that you have the emails and stuff for the people you need to reach for merchant services. Just those types of things. That way, if there is an issue when running, you can email us or call us and we can help you right then on the spot. And because if you wait, it might, there's always those oh shit moments in trade shows that happens everywhere. And we get those calls and we're able to assist right then and there because they took time to get our number or email for it. And also, or there, I get calls about issues. Hey, this died. What am I supposed to do? Well, did you bring your charger? Did you bring a power bank? Suggested to you before. No. Well, run down to the convenience store, go buy charger for it. I mean, those are the main things we get asked about. Is oh, this died. Is it dead forever? No, it just needs to be charged. It will be fine. You know, just forward thinking.
So I think if I hear what you're saying correctly, is have a dedicated bag that's your trade show bag, so that you just it's almost like having a med kit, right? Like you've got your chargers, you've got your power bank, you've got all of your important papers and troubleshooting addresses and emails. Maybe you have your backup. If you use a printer, you're going to have a full stock of printer paper, backup printer paper in there for the receipts, right? And then that way is and then at the end of the trade show, you just make sure to restock that. So it's always just, you don't mix that, you don't cross the streams, right? You're not like the day before trying to pull stuff from your office and realizing you're out of paper or whatever. So I think that's really smart. Is there anything else other than that that you think is working for people in terms of what's the mindset I should have when I go into one of these shows? Like, should I just be, in terms of with regards to my equipment, it's just like just not worry about it. It's going to be taken care of, or what's a good mindset going into here when I'm dealing with a trade show if I've never been to one before?
Never been to one, always test your equipment the night before.
Mm.
Run a quick dollar test transaction through it. It'll say whether it's process or decline. If it's declined, you give us a call. I can fix it right then and there. And the best thing to do is just go into the trade show with that good. Hey, Tactical Pay's got us. They've taken care of us through, got our equipment sorted out. I know when I need it, it's going to work every time.
Yeah, and I think go ahead.
It's just the mindset of positivity actually has helped a lot of these merchants through their first trade shows.
Well, and that's the whole purpose of getting a strategic partner like Tactical Pay is that look, like you've seen it all, you've done it all. When someone calls you, it's very unlikely that they're going to call you with a problem that you haven't dealt with previously. And that's the whole point of partnering with Tactical Pay. And one kind of last question is we're kind of run up against time here is that when I do all these transactions at the trade show, are they treated differently than if I'm doing them at my retail store? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, do they all go to the same place? It's the same software, whatever software I'm using. Is there a difference between the two platforms, or is everything kind of put together? How does that work?
No, everything that you say do from your retail shop, then your separate device at the trade show, they all talk to each other and they all go to the same place. Your Tactical Pay dashboard, you can view all your transactions, all the batches, the payouts, everything from there. There is no separate bin where it shifts to. We keep a free flow in one flow.
Yeah, and I think that's important too, because a lot of especially newer merchants too, is that you can get overwhelmed with all of the things that you have to be concerned about in your business, especially when you're dealing with such a highly regulated business. Tactical Pay is that you want, or as not Tactical Pay, but as the firearms business, is that you want to make sure that you can keep your books as clean as humanly possible so that you know what's going on both in your business, but also on the regulation side as well.
Yes.
So, and then I guess one last question. Is there, in terms of the ability of what I'm selling, a firearm, for example, is there a robust ability with the software and the dashboard to be able to include a lot of descriptions of the firearm or in terms of being able to identify it? Do we have that capability, or is it something that's more like that's a different type of record keeping?
If you're talking about like say the Sig Sauer P320 and then serial number, that's more or less like a bound book,
which
is the software you have to have anyway in order to have be able to sell it. Ours, it does not include a description as of now, but I'm not going to say that's not coming soon, but you never know. It's something we have looked at, just a description, whether it be firearm, rifle, or, there's always at least a description or a little decipher for it.
Right. Well, I guess what I want to say though is that because you don't want to be running two different sets of books, right? Is that you don't really need to have that on the receipt or on the transaction, because the transaction has a unique identifier itself, right?
Yes.
So if you wanted to be able to link it to a firearm, you just have to use that one unique identifier.
The receipt number to link it.
Right, exactly. Because I'm inartfully saying is you don't need to keep two separate books, right? You just need to have your financials, and if you want, you can link them to the actual transaction number.
Yeah, you can hook them up kind of like invoices, and on the back end, you can always print up every individual transaction and put that receipt, so to speak, to it. And that's another way, and that's all to be done from the Tactical Pay dashboard as well.
And then the Tactical Pay dashboard, can you access that on your phone too?
If you go through the website, yes.
Right.
We have an app.
Right. No, but I'm saying, but again, it's just you have one place that you go. It's always the same place. It's just on the web. It's just like it's not nothing that you don't need. Again, I'm a simple person. I don't want to have an app and a website and you know what I mean? Like two different sets of books. It's like I want this does this. This is where I go. And so that's great. Well, listen, it's been really great to talk to you. I know that Tactical Pay is always making strides and advances in terms of technology and outreach and customer service. What's on the horizon for the next 3 to 6 months, next 2 to 3 years? What's the plan? Is there anything in the hopper you can tell me about, or is everything kind of secret right now?
Everything's a little on the hush at the moment. We'll
Mhm.
see what the year brings.
All right, awesome. Well, it's good to know that we got good stuff coming. So I'd love to bring you back onto the podcast, maybe in 3 to 6 months and see what's cooking and get some more of these stories that help, get people to know that they can go to these trade shows or gun shows and have these capabilities pretty easily, and not to be discouraged by that. So I really
Yeah.
would love to have you back on the show again.
Hey, it was awesome to be here, Wade. I do appreciate it.
Of course, of course. All right, Kyle, have a great day and thanks again.
Hey, you have a good one.